Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another PFL fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for PFL 2025 World Tournament first round 3, or you could say Impa Kasanganay or Kasanganay versus Edwards. But I'll be predicting the full card of fights. All right, let's get to our first fight on the card. So in our first fight on the card, we got in the lightweight division, we got Brent Primus versus Vinicius Cincy. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going average confidence Brent Primus to beat Vinicius Cincy. Originally, they had Brent Primus versus Shabley. He's about to get whooshed. I said whoosh. He's about to get washed by Shabley again. But they did him a favor. I guess Shabley got injured or decided he want to go to a different organization. I don't know. I'm not going to look into it. But new opponent, Vinicius Cincy. So Primus should win this one. Probably should be high, but I'm not going to go too high with a guy that's like 40 years old. But this is a fight he definitely should win. Vinicius Cincy has one knockout win on his whole record. Primarily a submission grappler. Primus is the much better submission grappler. Much better overall fighter. And just on a whole different level. I think Brent Primus will be able to. Also, Cincy got submitted by Sam Patterson. Again, Primus is a whole different grappling level than Patterson and Cincy and a lot of people. And he still got enough in the tank to beat a lot of these guys, especially when it's a matchup that stylistically favors him heavily. So again, average confidence Primus here. I think he'll be better than Cincy everywhere, and primarily where they're both at their strongest, which is in the grappling department. I think Primus will be able to out-wrestle him, be able to out-grapple him, and I'll see a second-round submission for Brent Primus. Again, just dominate him in the grappling department, and then ultimately getting a second-round sub. So in this one, I got Brent Primus via second-round submission. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Khalid Murtazaliev versus Nick Maximov. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Nick Maximov to beat Khalid Murtazaliev. I had to get that out of my chest, but Nick Maximov low confidence here. Khalid Murtazaliev, probably the more well-rounded fighter, but Maximov is the better wrestler and definitely the better submission grappler. Also, I think he has the better gas tank, and that's where a big factor in me picking Maximov. I feel like Murtazaliev is more well-rounded, but it's not like he's that elite of a striker. It might be enough, in some case like fights like this kind of, where he might be able to use his wrestling to defend the takedown and then just outwork him. Might be able to. But then you throw it on top of that his gas tank isn't that good, and he's typically fading in fight, even against mediocre competition, which he has been fighting recently. I think Maximov can outgrind him. Might be a little rough start. Because it's not like Murtazaliev, some big hitter, some super technical striker. He's not. Decent level of striking. Again, probably higher level than Maximov, but nothing too crazy. And again, he can even put the stamp on some mediocre competition in a couple of these fights. So I just think Maximov will be able to outgrind him, outwork him, and be able to get decision here. I think he's going to be able to grind. And then I think by the second half of the second round, I think he's going to start to be huffing and puffing, and pace going to drop. Hands going to be low, be struggling to defend these takedowns, and Maximov going to start to get him much earlier and just be much more dominant with his work and be able to beat him by decision here. So in this one, I got Nick Maximov via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Aaron Jeffrey versus Murad Ramazanov. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'll go low confidence Murad Ramazanov. If you want to go high or lock or whatever with Ramazanov, y'all can, but I'm not. I think Jeffrey's a very solid fighter, very well-rounded. It definitely doesn't help that he lost to Fabian Edwards. That's not a good look. It also doesn't help that he got dominated in the grappling department by John Salter in his retirement fight, I think. That doesn't help. But, Jeffrey's definitely the much more well-rounded fighter here. But I do think Ramazanov has the distinct wrestling advantage. And he does have the cardio to back, and he has the will to back it. So he'll be able to go for takedowns heavily. Even in his fight when he fought the guy who won last season, who beat him twice that season. Forgetting his name, but that guy was a beast, and he was taking some of his best shots in the second fight, and he still would shoot in and getting denied, getting taken out, still was threatening with takedowns the whole fight. So he does have that relentless wrestling, and it's not like Jeffrey has phenomenal wrestling defense. But yeah, Jeffrey's definitely more well-rounded. He can be a tough test for him. He's experienced, so I could definitely see him eking out like a controversial split decision. Is definitely on the table for Jeffrey, but I'll say more so decision Ramazanov. I think he'll be able to get the takedown, and then even if he doesn't get him, he'll constantly be threatening him. He does got power, so he can make Jeffrey have to respect that as well. Touch him with the power, constantly attack the legs, look for the takedowns, constantly initiating the clinch, and now allow Jeffrey to fight his game. And I still think that Ramazanov, regardless, probably get like 4 takedowns or 3 takedowns at least this fight. and be able to grind out a decision over Jeffrey here. So in this one, I have Murad Ramazanov via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the lightweight division, we got Clay Collard versus Alfie Davis. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going average confidence Clay Collard to beat Alfie Davis. And Alfie Davis is mostly just a cardio kickboxer. He does got some dangerous kicks. That's about it. But don't feel like his footwork is all that phenomenal. Don't feel like his defense is all that phenomenal. Don't feel like his gas tank is all that phenomenal. Pretty easy to cut him off. Pretty easy to get his back in the cage. And I think that's where Clay Collard's going to want to be able to get him back case, put it back with the jab, cut him off, rip him to the body. And I can really see a stoppage for Clay Collard. Matter of fact, I'm going to predict a stoppage. I'm going to say third round TKO. This accumulation down. I think Davis is tough and he's game. But yeah, I just don't feel like he's all that good. If he had, a stronger grappling game, that'd be good. But I just think with his kickbox, I think he's gonna be like in a similar predicament that Pettis was. And obviously, he's no Pettis either. So I think Clay Collard's gonna be the crowd him, get to boxing range, stay in boxing range, and not allow David. Again, even against what's his name? His name not Streaks. His name is Mansour Bernawi, who's not really a good striker. Mansour Bernawi was constantly getting in on him and touching him up. And Mansour Bernawi is known for being a very stiff striker. Mansour Bernawi beat Davis ever. He beat him on the feet and he beat him on the ground. And that's a rare occasion for Mansour Bernawi to do that against somebody. He does that to some people, but you're supposed to be such an elite striker that should not be happening to you. Like getting picked apart on the feet and on the ground against Mansour Bernawi. And Clay Collard's a much better boxer and striker than Bernawi. So you have to think he's going to be able to constantly get in on inside, break Davis down. Just constant value, constant pressure, constant accumulation, working to the body, coming up top with the hook, little short hook on the chin. And David just getting wielded by all that ferocity by Clay Collard. And I see Clay Collard getting the third round TKO. So in this one, I got Clay Collard via third round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Josh Silveria versus Mike Shipman. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence Josh Silveria to beat Mike Shipman. And Mike Shipman's on a good little run here. But we were looking to the run, like who has he fought? He's been fighting some mediocre competition, like a 40-year-old. What's that dude's name? I'm not gonna try to bring his name. I'm trying to think of his name, but Conor McGregor's friend, guy like 40 years old, mediocre pretty much everywhere. He took him to a decision. Another two guys he fought like very mediocre. They might have padded their record a little bit, but when you look into it, they're very mediocre competition. Josh Silveria is pretty much coming off like 3 close losses. I mean, I don't think he's coming off a loss right now, but his losses were to championship winners of PFL. He lost to let me scroll up. He lost to Impa Kasanganay twice. The last fight was very close. They had, and then was another split decision loss. He lost a split decision to the former light heavyweight winner, I think, of PFL. So yeah, he's been fighting much better competition. I think Josh Silveria is a better striker. I think he's better grappler. I think he's fought better competition. And I'll say decision. I think he'll be able to beat Mike Shipman pretty much everywhere this fight takes place. And I think experience and level of competition is definitely drastically different here. So in this one, I got Josh Silveria via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the quarterfinals, we have in the lightweight division, we got Maz Burnell versus J.J. Wilson. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence J.J. Wilson to beat Maz Burnell. And I'm forgetting all these names, but ultimately what made me decide what J.J. Wilson, despite the layoff, is I feel like he has a similar lift and build to a guy that recently beat Burnell last season and submitted Burnell last season. I think J.J. Wilson's the better submission grappler. I think Burnell's the better wrestler, maybe. But I definitely think submission skill, J.J. Wilson's the better submission guy. His striking might not be as polished as Burnell, but the guy who stopped Burnell last season wasn't such a good striker either, but he has similar attributes, similar length, similar awkwardness, similar grappling skill, if even less. I just feel like J.J. Wilson, a better version of the same guy that Burnell lost to last year. And I think Wilson will be blasting that teep to the body. Burnell did not like that teep last time. And I think J.J. Wilson will be able to create scrambles and apply pressure, make Burnell uncomfortable. Ultimately, when Burnell starts to feel uncomfortable, he's going to initiate grappling. J.J. Wilson will be able to capitalize, turn it into his favor, and I think he's ultimately going to be able to submit Burnell in the second round. But a highly competitive scrap, but J.J. Wilson just constant pressure, constant attack, especially looking to swarm up top, definitely looking to attack the teep to the body heavily, and constant pressure, swarming, and causing Burnell to reactionary wrestle, and then exploiting that reactionary wrestling and tapping Burnell out in the second round. So in this one, I got J.J. Wilson via second round submission. Now to our next fight, we have in the lightweight division, we got Ghazi Rabadanov versus Mark Jacasey. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going low confidence Ghazi Rabadanov to beat Mark Jacasey. I do think that Mark Jacasey is high-key live for upset here, but I will go Ghazi Rabadanov, especially with his improvements. He's been improving a lot in the striking department, especially in that last season. He showed a lot of growth in the striking. I definitely think he's the better wrestler. But Jacasey still will be the quicker, sharper striker. But I think Rabadanov can mix it and grapple enough that can slow Jacasey down. And I do think that Rabadanov has the better gas tank. I think he's more tenacious. I think he'll be able to break Jacasey down and grind him out to a decision. Probably a little bit of rough early start, but ultimately Rabadanov locking in, applying the pressure, and causing, Jacasey to fade in the fight, and then being able to get a decision victory over Jacasey. But again, Jacasey's very live. And when you really look at Jacasey's losses, like most of the guys that were really aggressive finishers are the full pack, like aggressive striker and subber, but yeah, primarily aggressive strikers. With Joe Alvarez submitted him, what's his name? That Brazilian dude pressed him, like caught him early, then caught him again. So a lot of guys that have power typically are pressure boxers, like people that's going to apply pressure on the feet and that can strike real well. Like Rabadanov recently just started to really get his striking better and better. Not to say he was a bad striker, but I'm just saying he don't really fit the Zach mold, but obviously I feel like he's better than a lot of guys that Jacasey has lost to. Not all the guys that Jacasey has lost to, but the majority of guys I feel like Rabadanov is notably better than him. But either way, I think Rabadanov will be able to put it all together and show that championship grit and mentality and be able to, deal with maybe a little bit of rough patches early and then be able to weather and just keep pressing and breaking Jacasey down and getting that decision victory. So in this one, I have Ghazi Rabadanov via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Dalton Rasta versus Sada Bousi. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'm going low confidence Sada Bousi to beat Dalton Rasta. And Dalton Rasta is definitely a solid wrestler. But when I look at his fights, I'm just not super impressed. I feel like Sada Bousi trains with better fighters. He has dealt with similar styles. And Rasta still seems very green. He has taken a loss. I still feel like he's a very green fighter. He's heavily muscled. He does got a power, but I don't feel like his takedowns are all that great. His top control, particularly, not even all that great. So I feel like Sada Bousi, and also his gas tank is not particularly great either. So I think Sada Bousi could do a good job of defending those takedowns. Holding Rasta to very limited takedowns, and then forcing Rasta to spin his gas tank, which is not phenomenal, to get back to his feet. Then I can see Sada Bousi chewing up his legs inside out, slamming teeps in his body, making a very frustrating fight for Rasta. And Rasta again has shown consistency to fade in fights. And again, Sada Bousi is still a very experienced fighter. And his takedown defense has been consistently improving. It's not like he's just been losing to guys that just wrestled. Like he's been losing guys. In the last season, he lost a guy that had fought at 205 before. He was fighting above his depth, kind of. And then he lost to guys that the full package. And guys that have experience, and plus being a full pack. I guess they all is entailed in the full pack. I feel like Ross is still kind of green. And also feel like when Ross can't get the takedown, end up in clinch, I feel like going to eat knees and elbows from Sada Bousi. Not only I see this as like a split decision fight. Maybe Ross getting off to a good start, but Sada Bousi, staying composed and allow Ross to, making Ross have to work harder. And Ross probably be the edge the first round, maybe the first and a half, but not really being able to do no effective damage. But Sada Bousi being able to get off good damage in both the first and second, probably lose the first, edge the second half so slightly. Then the third round, Ross shooting ugly takedowns, mouth breathing, probably feel like trying to do his best to just survive, feeling like he might be up 2 rounds, but he probably lost the first round by a slim margin because he didn't do no damage, didn't get as much control time. Sada Bousi did all the damage the second round. It's like a round of 2 halves. And then the third round, Rasta having very limited, if any, success with the takedowns and grappling. And then pretty much just trying to survive, and Sada Bousi just stalking him, chewing his legs up, kicking his legs out from underneath him, slamming teeps to his body, probably touching with his toes, landing a little front kick to his face. And Rasta again just on survival mode, just straddling the cage, trying to survive, trying to dive at ankles and just not really finding success. And Sada Bousi wins the decision. Probably a split decision. Just kind of got that vibe, but Sada Bousi doing the only one doing consistent, effective damage over the 15 minutes and getting his hand raised in a decision victory. So in this one, I got Sada Bousi via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got in the main event, Impa Kasanganay versus Fabian Edwards. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'm going average confidence, Impa Kasanganay to beat Fabian Edwards. So Fabian Edwards is definitely a dangerous striker. That's the issue. He is the bigger guy, but at least this time Kasanganay is not fighting a guy who was a big light heavyweight or a guy who has spent his whole career at light heavyweight, and Kasanganay who's really like realistically like a welterweight realistically. But I think he started his career really at middleweight, so he's more so around his weight class. Edwards will be the bigger fighter, but he's not dwarf. He's not fighting no 6'4" Jacob Neto. He's not there fighting Doublazan Yachimura, who spent his whole career at light heavyweight fighting light heavyweights and good light heavyweights at that, like the Corey Andersons and Phil Davises of the world. Like he's not fighting those. He's not fighting that guy. He's fighting Fabian Edwards. Again, still a big guy, but he's not a light heavyweight by no means. He's definitely not a big light heavyweight. He's a sizable middleweight, and that's about it. Good striking, questionable wrestling. Like Kasani, could split the wrestling of Edwards heavily in this fight. I do think he's a better striker. I think he's for better competition. Just got to avoid getting caught with that little short elbow inside. And not really playing Edwards' game. Mix it up, and I think he'll have a clear path to victory. I think he's a better overall fighter. I think he'll do that. Good combinations. Look to, mixing the takedowns. Grind out Edwards, put Edwards on his back early and often. And, again, take Edwards away from really the only area where he's a threat. He has no real submission threat. Not really even a great takedown artist or no good top control, no top ground and pound, nothing like that. Kasanga can do it all. He got a submission skill. He can strike. He got heart. He got grit. He got wrestling. Got a better gas tank. Pretty much the better fighter all across the board. Is like he's got to avoid not getting caught by Edwards. And I think he could do a good job of that. And I think he wins this one by decision here. So, in this one, I have Impa Kasanganay via decision. And that concludes my fight predictions for the full card of fights for for PFL, for PFL 2025 World Tournament, first round 3, or Kasanganay versus Edwards. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.